Hi, my name is Christy. Welcome back to my channel. I know it has been a hot second since I have made a video, so welcome back. Welcome back to me too. This one is about, well, not music, it's about this shirt. I made this shirt, finally. I can never find tops that fit me anymore, especially in the length of the arms. I have long, weird arms. The beauty about sewing, you can make them fit. You can make them as long as you want. I'm also really happy with the way this neckline turned out. So if you would like to learn how I did it, please stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video. I'm so excited. Thanks so much for being here. So here's the fabric I'm using, which you might remember from a previous project. It is good to use some fun scrap fabric. And a top that I will be patterning from that already fits my gangly arms well. Look at them. Look at those ridiculous things I like to call arms. So I folded the shirt and the fabric in half and lined the shirt up along the fold. I would like the new top to be a little bit longer, so I am using a generous seam allowance along the bottom and a regular seam allowance on the sides. Flip over the sleeve to mark the armhole by using your thumb as an anchor to pin the angles. And do the same for the shoulder and the neckline. Now that it is pinned, you can add the seam allowances. Once all of the seam allowances have been added, you can now cut it out and have made one front piece. Moving on to the back piece. Same steps. Line up the fabric in the shirt folded the other way on fold. Add your seam allowances with pins, cut it out, and apparently one of my lights burnt out, but there you go. Back piece is done, man. Sleeve time. And my lights have recharged and I'm adding that back too. Same process as the front and the back piece. Line up the sleeve on fold and pin a seam allowance. Use your fingers to mark where the shoulder is and pin that too. And since you've probably already guessed, I'm paranoid about my long arms, I am going to add an extra seam allowance at the end of the sleeves to make me feel better about myself. Add a seam allowance around the shoulders and then cut it out. And then do it again to make 2 sleeves. But make it easy on yourself and just use the first sleeve as a pattern. Okay, let's pin this together so we can start sewing. My goodness, there's a lot of pinning. So what I'm doing is just lining up with right sides together the 2 shoulder pieces. And I can already tell I made those way too big. Now it has been a while since I have used this old girl. Whoa, that's dusty. That's dusty. Okay. It has been so long, I've apparently forgotten how to sew and not injure myself. I'm good. Thank you for asking. Anyways, all I'm doing here is sewing the shoulders and back tacking at the end. Next, I'm trying to remember how to use my serger and realizing that there is a layer of dust on this too. That's gross. Okay, dust has been removed. Red thread has been changed to black, and I am now serging the shoulder seam I just sewed. Then press the seams towards the back. So before I sew up the sides, I want to sew on the sleeves. This is the back piece, and this is the front piece. Using the point on the shoulder, line it up with the seam with right sides together. Pin that in place, and then line up the ends of the sleeves with the edges of the sides. When pinning sleeves, I find that pins are your friends. Use them until your little heart desires, or until you run out of pins. See, as demonstrated here, I like to use a silly amount of pins, but it works. Next step is to sew it together. And even though I have sped up the footage, it is important to go slow to make sure the sleeves are attached correctly. And then once again, I'm using my serger to make sure that the seams stay in place. If you don't have a serger, a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine works as well. Now that the sleeves are put together, line up the armhole seams, the sleeve cuffs, the bottom, and everywhere else. Sew continuously from the bottom through the armhole to the cuff, and then obviously do this to both sides. Make sure you're being extra careful around the armholes. And then after sewn, take it once more to the serger to finish off the raw edges. And while I was already at my serger, I decided to serge the bottom of the shirt so that I could fold it up 2 centimeters to create the hem. If you are using stretchier or puffier fabric, this is a good way to make sure you keep the stretch, but it will need pressed to lay flatter. So it's right about now when I tried it on and realized that yes, the shoulders are too wide. So instead of undoing everything, I decided to attach some elastic at the shoulder seam to cinch it in a little bit. Luckily, it worked. Next, to calculate the neckband. It was 27 inches and I wanted only 85% of that number, which brings me to 22.95. Round that up to 23. And there's your number.
Oh no.
As you can probably guess, I dropped my pins everywhere. After picking those up, I've cut out my 23 by 1.5 inch neckband on bias. Mark the 4 quadrants on the bias tape and along the neckline, then line up those 4 pins with right sides together. Take note that the 2 shoulder pins are below the shoulder seam because remember the neckband bias tape is smaller than the neckline. Sew about 1/4 inch from the edge, making sure you fold over the bottom layer to hide the raw edges. And I've already had to use my seam ripper because I totally forgot to attach one of my I'm so excited tags my family bought me. Adding that in now. With the seams pressed upwards, fold over the edge to meet the stitch line, and then fold over one more time, pin in place, and then you can finish sewing the neckband, which should lay nice and flat. To make sure the inside is not showing on the outside, make sure a little bit of the fabric sticks out the top. This is definitely not the preferred method to sew in a tag, so just gloss over this portion of the video. It ended up working, but there are easier ways to do this. The cuffs are the last step. I am serging around the cuff line and then folding in about 1/2 inch to accommodate the thin piece of elastic that measures around my wrist. And then cut 2 of these. Pin the 1/2 inch elastic channel, but leave a 2 inch gap where you don't sew. I've marked this area with double pins as a reminder. After sewn, secure one end of the elastic with a pin and then feed it through the channel using a safety pin to guide its way. Once the pin pokes out the other end, secure the 2 ends together with some zigzag stitches on your sewing machine. It never looks pretty, but it doesn't matter. It's just going to be hid inside. So tuck it inside and then sew up that 2 inch gap we left before. I'm so happy you have stuck with me to the end of my return to sewing. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and enjoy the final reveal. Make it a great day. Sorry. Neckline lays flat. The sleeves are long enough for my gangly arms. I just wonder how many dogs have peed right where I'm sitting. I can smell a few. The graceful part of getting up.